The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
Failure of technology, but I'm delighted and quite frankly relieved to welcome Dom Chapman and Elliot Chapman, who are serial entrepreneurs and also brothers. They don't like job titles, so I'm just going to introduce them as co-founders and go straight over to Elliot and go, Elliot, what do you guys actually do?
Firstly, hello. Thank you for all the perseverance there. So I'm Elliot. I am one half of Chapman Capital, who owns Social Chaps as well as a number of other agencies, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
But Social Chaps was the first agency that Dom and I started about 4 or 5 years ago. And Social Chaps is a lead generation agency, or was a lead generation agency, is now a growth partner agency. So we'll talk about how that sort of naturally evolved over the last couple of years from the lead generation space into what is now a more well-rounded 360 view of lead generation, not just lead generation, but how do we then close the loop as well, which is what Dom and I are doing. And it is a blend of technology. Some of the technology is our technology, methodologies, which Dom and I have accumulated over the last 4 or 5 years, and people. We sort of marry up the three of all those things.
Yeah, wonderful, amazing. Dom, what's it like working with your brother?
Terrible. No, it's. I think it's a very unique thing, and a lot of people say to us, like, "Oh, I can work with a sibling. I can do this with a sibling." But I think the relationship that we've had, and we've also experienced what it's like with different types of business partners, as we've both been in previous ventures. We enjoy working together. We definitely balance each other out. And we bring completely different skill sets, as you previously saw. Trying to get on any form of tech for Elle is a struggle. Whereas if you put a financial spreadsheet in front of me, I'm not gonna know what to do. So we balance each other out in terms of skill sets, which works extremely well. But we also have the same sort of vision and sort of views on how to run business, how to treat people, and how to treat sort of customers. So it works well, I'd say.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, I really want to dive into 2 things. One is this, you don't like job titles. Tell me a little bit about that first.
So Dom and I sort of, I guess, prefaced that question with our relationship. So the reason we don't like job titles, and it's only between Dom and I. So within our team, everybody's got job titles. And despite us having 2 very different roles within what we do, again, as you've clearly seen over the last half an hour, very different people react to chaos in completely different ways. The reason we always have the same job title, no matter what we're doing, it removes any form of hierarchy or ego. Right. And it's something that, even though Dom might be clearly is much more technical, I'm more sort of sales operationally focused. We will always make the same decision. We'll always make a joint decision, and we won't proceed with anything unless we're both 100% committed to it.
Yeah.
And externally, the easiest way to convey that to other people is to have exactly the same job title, even though we do completely different things. So Dom and I will separately have our own. We don't really have job descriptions, but we sort of define our responsibilities as to what's mine and what's Dom's. But externally to the team, to anybody that we're working with, we are always aligned. We're always joined at the hip, even though behind the scenes we may not be.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, are you like Ant and Dec in that you always have to stand in the same place?
Not so much stand in the same place, but my name's always got to go before Dom's. And that is purely before Dom barks up about the ego, that's purely because I'm the oldest. And I know it's hard to believe. But that's the way it should be.
Yeah, you're quite right. Whereas I work with my brother. My brother's older than me, but we're really clear in that I'm in charge. Okay, so we definitely have, because he would hate to be in charge, and that's purely, yeah, he doesn't want to do that. He's really happy. He loves the fact that we call him the show pony, and he goes out and he does all the performing, because he's really, really good at that, and his public speaking and all the rest of it. And I'm much happier doing driving the business and doing all of that stuff. So it's really good you two have found your roles and found a way to work with each other happily, which I think is half the battle when you work with your family. Definitely. All right.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah, and I think we're both happy to muck in each other's side of the business when we have to as well.
Yeah.
Which is also like really helpful.
Yeah. Now, are you allowed to go on holiday at the same time, or do you have to, separate things like that out as well?
Good question.
Yeah, we have done. Yeah. Funnily enough, we don't coordinate that well, but the last two times I've flown back the day he's flying out.
Right. Okay.
And we haven't even coordinated.
No.
It's just happened naturally. So generally we sort of take it in turns to have time off, just because otherwise it could be too chaotic. But we have taken holiday at the same time.
Yeah, we've
gone on holiday together as well.
Yeah, how mad is that? So we go and relax, get away from work, and you're sat on a sunbed next to your brother, your colleague. But what is with that though? We are quite strict on when to talk about work and when not to talk about work. And I think people find it weird that we genuinely do have like a brother mate type relationship as well as a business relationship.
Yeah.
So genuinely enjoy spending time with Dom, like outside of work and socializing. We've got sport that we enjoy doing together. There's exercise that we enjoy doing together. So it very much is sort of like a layered relationship. You know when to turn it on, and from Friday through to Sunday evening, there won't be any conversation whatsoever about work, because we both respect each other's time.
Totally. Yeah, me and my brother, we have the same rules, definitely. And it works. It works really well. So let's go back to Social Chaps, because you said it's kind of evolved, but how did it begin in the first place?
Dom?
Yeah. So Social Chaps have sort of begun out of something that me and El were doing beforehand. So I was running a tech startup in the sort of recruitment technology space. So I'd raised and I was trying to figure out how to get in the room with HR directors, recruitment agency owners, and engaged a few marketing agencies, engaged a few sort of different types of consultancies, and I was quite young and inexperienced at the time. So just thought, give it to them, they'll know what they're doing, pay them a fee and they'll get me in the room. That didn't quite happen. So sort of fired those people and decided to start to figure it out myself. With that, I built a bit of a system within STEMX, and I was working with Elle, so we shared an office in Bournemouth. So we would be working together on this little system, and I was testing it with STEMX, I was testing it with South Coast Network. Elle was involved in the family business. And over probably a period of 6 to 9 months, we got this system working, which was you sort of put the data in the top end, worked really hard on sort of the copy and the strategy, and then leads would sort of come out the other side. So we built this system internally. We both went on to exit, and that was sort of how Social Chaps begun. But even at that point, we didn't realize that was the product or the service. We were using that to find clients, but we almost didn't know what we were going to do for those clients at that point. And now you can talk about sort of South Coast Network and your perspective on it.
Yeah, so similar, obviously sharing an office. The only thing I'd probably add to what Don was saying was I experienced the same thing with a marketing agency,
Right.
and we were both sort of bitching about having bad results and a bad experience and not quite getting what we expected. So I just added fuel to the fire, really, rather than any major solutions. But we were very much the guinea pigs of our own source. You know, we took our own medicine, and that helped us from a consultancy double the size of the business. We went from 2.5 million turnover to over £5.5 million a year turnover. And at which point I was very happy to walk away and say goodbye to consultancy life. That was a transition into what was then Social Chaps. But even at that point, we'd both exited roughly at the same time. It was strategic in that we both knew that we were exiting. We both knew that we wanted to maybe try something else. We'd enjoyed this project. We tried other failed ventures previously. So we knew that we were going to do something, but I don't think we realized that it was going to turn into, I don't think anybody does really, but we definitely didn't foresee it turning into what it is today. One of the things that we did say is we never wanted to have any employees.
Yes.
And that quickly went out the window after 4 weeks,
Right.
when our sister, the business was growing quite quickly. It was maybe a little bit longer than 4 weeks. It was probably about 6 months, actually. Business was doing well. We were about to take on our first employee, somebody else. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and our sister Sammy called me and was like, "I'm leaving my job. I'm out. I need a job." I'm like, "Can you do what we need you to do?" She's like, "No, but I'm out. Like, I need." She was just going back after maternity with her first child. Called up Dom. I was like, "We're in a bit of a situation here. We've got to hire Sammy." I was like, "I don't think she can do the job." I was like, "I know, but we've just got to hire her. Otherwise, we're going to get a load of grief from mum and dad, and it's just not worth it. Let's hire her. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't." Hired her the next day, and I'm sure Don would agree, probably one of the best hires we've made. She's been unbelievable. 5 years down the line, she's still with us in a slightly different role.
Misreliable, yeah.
Misreliable, yeah. So it's very much within the family, and again, no real plans to do that. Definitely didn't want to hire her, and openly would say that to her.
Yeah.
Regularly do say that to her, just reminding her that she's very lucky. But it's worked out well.
I love that. And I love the fact that you kind of fell over the idea for the business.
Yep.
We've all been let down by marketing agencies. I remember very clearly paying £2,500 a month for somebody to produce a blog a month, which turned out to be the one blog that was downgrading us on SEO.
Yeah, efficient.
Yeah, it was like, yay, never doing that again. So I love the fact that you've combined this lead generation with actually working really closely with the businesses, and that, like you say, that 360, that holistic view, because actually that's what business development and lead generation is about, isn't it? And how has that led on to other businesses then?
Dom?
Yeah, good question. So I think we acquired Speak on Podcasts in December of last year, which is obviously how we're sort of here today.
Yeah.
But we wanted to implement a sort of a B2B system that we'd be working on, sort of a B2B marketing and sales system that we'd been working on and sort of tinkering for a while, which sort of hits all the elements of how to engage a prospect at every sort of area. So getting your CRM set up right, getting your lead generation set up right, getting your SEO and inbound set up correctly, and then doing sort of events, online events, content like podcasting, and sort of turning it into like something which is sort of really efficient and actually produces results, instead of, again, as you've been there, put out like 1 or 2 blogs, 4 social media posts, and just hope for the best. Yeah. Everything that we do is to engage a prospect at a certain area of their journey. So we implemented that, and it was a complete success. And Speak on Podcast continues to sort of grow. And then we decided to roll that out across other businesses. And And yeah, so far it's a success. It's a lot of work, but we're enjoying it at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's good. So
there we are.
And are you also investors as well?
Yeah, so we've invested into 4 other agencies.
Okay.
A couple we knew, so a couple were former clients. So we knew them quite well. We said, listen, this is what we're looking to do. We've got this system. We are looking for a small number of agencies that we know we love to work with, where we can actually invest in you, become part shareholder, align ourselves to your vision, which is potentially to exit in a number of years. And in doing so, the value that we're going to give and we're going to bring is exactly the system that Dom just explained. So it's, yeah, here we go. We want to invest in you. But one of I guess there's sort of parameters on the types of agencies, but also the types of people that we want to invest into. So our sweet spot is breaking through the 1 million revenue a year barrier, which a lot of agencies really struggle with.
Yeah, they do.
And the majority of the agencies, if not all of the agencies that we've invested in, are sort of sitting just south of that and have tried 1 or 2 times to try and break through and have struggled to actually break through. What we really focus our energy on is, are you set up from a lead gen perspective, a growth perspective, but also what's the impact on the team? If we go from 750 year 1 to 1.5 year 2, what's then the impact across the business? So it's not only that growth element, but it's also that advisory consultancy. Here's the systems, here's everything you need in place.
Great.
So there was no design for us to do this. We are constantly failing and stumbling our way through our entrepreneurial journey. And I even sort of slightly cringe at the thought of even being an entrepreneur. I'm
not sure what you are if you're not entrepreneurs.
I'm not quite sure either. I don't want to put a label on it.
No,
we are very much sort of fumbling our way through our business careers. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, don't you think though? Most people we're just making it up as we go along.
Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. I think there's so much of a stigma around trying to appear like a polished or the polished version of yourself online, which is certainly not what we are. Very much polished.
And I don't. You two are clearly younger than me. Let's not go down that road. But I think I've reached an age where that wanting to appear polished, I've just forgotten about, because I know I just can't. You know, because we are all making it up. I've been in business for 30 years now, and I'm still making it up because I'm running a completely different business to the one I was 30 years ago. Completely different. And actually, I think that is the very nature of growing businesses. Even, what some of my clients are architects. They know architecture inside out and back to front, but what they don't know is how to run a £10 million business, because up until now, they've only run a 4 million and a £6 million business.
Yeah, completely different.
It's completely different. It's totally different. Right.
But
so go on.
No, I was just going to say, if you're not constantly sort of failing, adapting, somewhat tweaking, well, you will be, like, whether it's in life, whether it's in business, you just naturally are, because the person that you are at 25 is not the person you are at 35, and circumstances change. But I think one of the things that we do across our companies, and we actually included this in our sort of takeover speech of Speak on Podcasts, is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're super uncomfortable, it typically means you're doing something to better yourself or to grow. Even if it's not an enjoyable scenario, you will be better off for it. So, that's something that we try and live by.
So, podcasting, I've been doing it for, probably 3 years now. And mainly because I just like it and I'm really nosy and I just want to ask entrepreneurs about what they're up to. But there's a definite commercial benefit, isn't there, that I'm probably blissfully unaware of. But what's happening in the podcasting world? What are the trends? What can it do for a business?
So I'll let Dom talk more around the actual hosting side, because you're probably slightly closer to it. So from a Speak On Podcasts, which is the agency that we bought, we focus on getting business owners, typically business owners or business leaders, onto shows like yourself. So hence why Dom and I are here. The commercial benefit of that, there's a number of different benefits. We get exposure to your audience. So if we've got some message or something that we want to try and get across, we are essentially piggybacking off the back of other hosts' audience. You can also spin this into content and a complete content arm of your business, and essentially build a little media suite. So every single recording, every single soundbite, you can then snip that into, you know, a 1-minute clip or a reel or whatever you want to do onto LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever it wants, and just add that to the media center that you're building or the lead generation engine that you're trying to build as well. So it is very much, we describe it internally as sort of new age PR. You know, 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to get yourself out there, like really, really out there, you'd do something in print, you do something on TV, you do something on radio. What we're able to do, and what this is, because this will no doubt go onto YouTube. Most podcasts are being pushed onto YouTube. You've got that long form content as well as all the short form content. You can also turn this into blogs, into articles, and there's AI tools out there that are doing that for you as well. So from a guesting perspective, and it's similar to the hosting, there are huge commercial value to appearing as a guest.
Yeah, brilliant. Dom, come in on the podcast.
Well, the only thing I would add to it, and I think there's values, and I was actually consulting with a current client whether to go and start guesting or start their own podcast and the difference in price. And he wants to sort of start his own podcast, which I think is great. And it's, for me, the benefits are around building sort of deep relationships with influential people. You know, you get your 20 minutes, half an hour before, you get 15 minutes after, you get an hour on the podcast, and then there's all the, you know, everything that comes after it. I think it's a great way to sort of build relationships with people who you want as future clients. So that's why he's building it. And then again, similar to Elle, I think you know, if anyone has ever seen sort of the Gary V content model, podcasting is perfect for it. It allows you to do everything you want with just one podcast a week, or even a couple of podcasts a month. For me, you know, if the audience comes and people listen, that's an additional bonus. But for me, I think the real value in sort of smaller podcasts is, you know, content creation, building real relationships, and, you know, for me, they're the two key things. A lot of the people we put on podcasts they've often turned into business relationships, and I'm sure that's happened with you as well. As it is happening with us at the moment. So yeah, for me, they're the key things from I guess the smaller podcast space, or the sort of the business to business podcast. Whereas, you know, if you're getting put on your Stephen Bartlett's and your Joe Rogans of the world, I think that's a whole different medium and space. It's a whole different medium and space. I think he has a team of 25 behind him.
40.
40?
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't feel quite as bad now. It's like me and my two dogs.
Co-hosts.
Co-hosts. They regularly. I do have some help with the edit, but that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So go on.
I think that medium, in terms of high-end production podcasts with influential or celebrities, where that goes, I'm quite intrigued, but I can see that moving more to sort of the likes of TV interviews, which is how it feels now. Or of like Piers Morgan life stories sort of 10 years ago. That's sort of what it feels like now.
A little throwback there, Dom.
Yeah, little throwback.
Do you know, it's really funny. I like Joe Rogan, but it depends on the guest he's got. So I'll only listen to him when he's got a guest that I really, really want to listen to. The rest of it, I don't like celebrity podcasts. The only one I listen to that is remotely a celebrity podcast is Chris and Rosie Ramsey, Shag, Married, Annoyed, and that's just because it's really rude.
It's funny.
And funny. Yeah. And they don't behave like celebrities.
Yeah.
For me, kind of podcasting is very much about, you know, ordinary people opening a window into their little world.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Dom and I actually had our own podcast before we realized how much work was involved. Dived in probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were interviewing just fascinating people. There was no consensus. It was people who have got a story, but specifically not celebrities.
Yeah.
Like there were sort of some that were on the cusp of being celebrities.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't class them as celebrities, and if they're listening, no offense, then they won't be listening, but you never know. But it's no, they won't be listening. But it's that everybody's got something to give. Everybody's got a story, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's emotional, whether it's influential, whatever it might be. And I agree with you, Rebecca. Like, the more enjoyable podcasts are probably the less polished, less edited, just raw conversations.
Yeah, totally. Have you come across a podcast called Fred the Head?
I haven't.
Fred the Head. No, I haven't.
Okay.
Is that a recommendation?
Yeah, it is. I had to listen to all 43 episodes in about a 2-month period because I got so obsessed with it. It's Who Killed Fred the Head. Look it up, it's great. Anyway, I ended up doing a podcast with the guy who records that podcast because he actually also runs a business. He doesn't do the podcast to earn any money, and he runs a business. So I interviewed him about that. But yeah, it leads you down some really interesting alleys. Anyway, listen, where are you taking these businesses? What's the grand plan, chaps?
Good question. So each business has, one thing that's important to mention is each business are completely separate. So we're not doing a merger. We're not doing a roll up. A lot of people naturally assume that we are sort of smashing these businesses together. I've done mergers in the past. I'm never doing one ever again. They are messy, and I'm just not putting myself through that. So each individual business is completely independent. There is some sort of crossover. Everybody knows that we're working together. There's some cross collaboration. We've done days where we get people in the same room and do like a sort of a whiteboard strategy session on best practices within certain parts of the business. But they are completely independent, purposely. And each company has a different goal. But for us, it is to get each company to a specific target that we've already set and sell. Simple as that. We want to get it to a certain point and eventually exit.
Great. Love it. I'm going to pick one. Quite right. You've got to have an exit strategy. I don't care what your exit strategy is. You've got to have one. You've got to build towards something.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, but you've got to build towards something. I quite agree. Okay.
It's having that North Star.
Absolutely. And people go, well, why do you want me to plan my exit? Well, because otherwise you'll make decisions now that mean in 15 years' time you end up over here somewhere where you actually meant to end up over here, and you'll be really miserable. So unless you plan where you're heading, you could end up nowhere. Yeah.
Nice and doom and gloom there. I like that.
Totally. Right. Let's take social. Yeah. I'm a mank. I've got a black sense of humor. So let's take Social Chaps. I'm mainly taking that business because that's the one that's been around the longest. If that had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
Wow, that is a question perfectly set up for Dom to answer.
Go for it, Dom. Is that because you don't know the answer, Elliot?
Yeah, so whenever Elle doesn't know the answer, he pushes it on to me, and I have to fumble around an answer until he comes up with the right one. Every time.
I had noticed that.
But I think the thing with Social Chaps is a really easy one in terms of personality because actually we didn't really build Social Chaps to exit as such. the personality and
Okay.
what Social Chaps is me and Elle. And it has been sort of its own sort of detriment that we built it that way. And we are sort of working hard on that at the moment to change it slightly, to give it a bit more of a North Star and switch it up. But yeah, the personality of Social Chaps is definitely from me and Elle. So it's very, led on relationships. A lot of people these days, especially in agencies, they'll stick to Slack, they'll stick to email, whereas we're very much pick up the phone if there's an issue, figure it out, take people out for some breakfast, coffees, lunches, actually build real deep relationships, and understand the sort of the end goal of what the project is, which again is a bit of a difficulty when you're trying to pass clients on to other people, and they always end up calling you back because you've built a friendship almost with those guys. So Elle, you've probably had enough time now. Go on.
Well, I was actually amazed how you fumbled your way through that. That was
Go on, Elliot.
So I haven't necessarily thought of a character, but I was going to counter what Dom was saying around it being sort of limiting, because a lot of the things that we've done beyond Social Chaps have been because of those relationships that we've created. And it's, I guess we're sort of that, I don't know whether COVID changed it or what, but there is a reluctancy to meet people face to face in the business world that we're in today, because the technology is now there to not be able to. But you don't create deep relationships, in my opinion, without consistently looking into the whites of somebody's eyes. And I am a big believer in, whether it's lunch, coffee, dinner, beers, whatever it is, having that 2-3 hours where you're getting to know somebody intimately over a period of time is much more valuable than consistent half an hour Zooms.
On my own podcast twice in one day. Right. The universe is trying to tell me something. Right.
You should have heard what we said about you when you were gone, Rebecca. Honestly, I'm not sure it can go out.
I can only imagine that cow. What a numpty. No, the way you've described Social Chaps, do you know what came into my head was like a big friendly giant. There's like a big gonna give you kind of a bear hug. I'm gonna take your stuff. I'm gonna look after it. I'm gonna feed you, and I'm gonna nourish you, and I'm gonna make sure you succeed. That's what came into my head. But then
you've just described Dom.
So that's fine.
You've literally just described Dom. That's all you've done.
There we go. There we go. All right, that's quite nice. Right, chaps, I could talk to you all day. It's been fabulous. I have wasted so much of your afternoon already with my tech failure.
Good. Do not worry.
And I really, really thank you for this, and wish you all the luck in the world. And keep me posted on your progress. I'm absolutely fascinated to see where you all end up.
Thank you so much for having us. We've loved our extended time. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest, we've built a kick-ass culture, coach and consultant program? So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9-to-5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there.
The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen. Grab your seat, let's have